The mill was built in 1864 by Sir and St. Vrain, and St. Vrain was basically an entrepreneur. At the time, he owned mills in Taos, had a wooden mill here in Mora, other mills in Colorado and Santa Fe. And in 1864, his wooden mill in Taos burned, and he had just signed a contract with the federal government to supply grain and milling, flour and middlings and so forth for the troops. Well, he needed a new mill right away. And because the old wooden mill burned, he built a stone mill, and this was the result.
This mill was built for a basic function of grinding grain. It was built after designs from back east, and as a matter of fact, I think some of the main structure of the mill was purchased as a unit and was shipped out here on wagons and assembled by hand, mule power, and who knows what. But the function of this mill is to grind grain, basically wheat, maybe barley, oats. A lot of it was used for local consumption, but mainly the function of the mill is to supply product for the Santa Fe Trail people, Fort Union, and export.
Well, this mill did stop operation in 1933, and basically it was used as a warehouse for the Strong and Tremblay store. The Tremblay family owned the mill at that time. I think it stopped being used as storage in the 1950s, excuse me, and then it just sat empty and vacant and slowly deteriorated. Once we owned the mill, the first thing we had to do was just clean it out. The decades of pigeon droppings and so forth, but that was pretty straightforward. But what the New Mexico Historic Preservation Division wanted us to do, and they gave us a grant, was to create a historic structures report. And that was to document the history of the building and its structural condition. And for that, we hired Beverly Spears of Spears Horn Associates or architects, I should say, out of Santa Fe.
We rarely turn down a historic preservation project because they're always so unique and interesting. So we were thrilled to be invited to give a proposal, which we did, and we were chosen to do the job. That building is an extraordinary building because it was built in the mid-19th century, and it was built so well. The craftsmanship is absolutely remarkable. And the building was so deteriorated when we started that it took us a while to really realize the quality that it was built with.
We had a real problem with the fact that we had the north wall pulling away from the rest of the building. We hired an engineering firm, Engineering Analytics, out of Raton, to assess the condition of the foundation. And they drilled a borehole. They found out that they went down about 24 feet, and at the north end of the building, only found water and sand. At the middle to the south end, there was solid ground. We hired a firm, Hayward Baker, out of Colorado. They came in and around the northern third of the mill, injected this fast-setting grout underneath the foundation. It didn't close the crack, but it provided a large enough foundation and went down deep enough that the wall isn't moving anymore. So that was the most important thing to do. We didn't do anything at all until we knew we had a stable project.
There was a major cleanup because the building was filled with trash and debris. And so the foundation had to clean the building. They secured it to keep pigeons out, which was important. And then window replacement was done, based on our drawings. A year or two later, the gable repair, which was the The most recent thing that we were involved with that was repairing the two wooden gable ends, which were very deteriorated, replacing the windows there, working a bit on the cornice. The most current thing, which is yet to be done, but we have done the drawings for it, is to do an egress from the back of the building, because when you have public assembly, you need two means of egress, and they didn't have one at the back of the building, so we have designed that within the historic context. So that'll be the next construction. Another thing that they did was to rebuild the platform in the front of the building. When the mill was operating, wagons or trucks would drive up. The flour that had been milled was dropped down off of this platform into the wagon or the truck, and that had been missing, so they reconstructed that, which was great.
I wanted to create the opportunity for community use. It could be a museum, it could be a heritage center, but I have no plans for exactly what it would be. Now, we have other people in the foundation that are thinking about how it could be used as a visitor center or a museum, and that could very well be, it'd be very easy to do, let's put it that way. We just have to decide as a community what the use would be.
The machines that are left here, which aren't very many, will stay. The third floor is probably going to be our unofficial museum, if you would. That's kind of how we see it at the moment. We don't intend to recreate the mill as it once was.
I joined the board about, I'm going to say maybe 3-4 years ago. And my reason for being interested in what St. Vrain, the foundation, was doing here was that as part of their vision, I saw the educational component, and I'm a former educator, a retired educator, I guess I should say, and I saw the potential there for this building, this facility, to be used as a learning center for all ages, because this area is so rich in history. If we were to develop programs, learning programs here, people could come here and they could learn about local history, they could learn about U.S. history. I think the Mora community is very pleased to see this building being restored. They drive by and they you know, I personally get a lot of positive comments about it, so they like that part of it. And I think generally the community feels positively about what's happening here.